This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Everybody, welcome into the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks. So you get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Wanted to welcome in Ric Serritella, who covers the draft for us over at Boston Sports Journal. Does a great job. He has a bunch of other different jobs and a range of experience. Rick, why don't you, for people who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. And it's game time. It's draft time, right? So it's my 23rd year covering the NFL draft. I actually began with the New England Patriots a long time ago as an intern. I went to school at Johnson & Wales in Providence, Rhode Island. So I had a chance to do a little internship with New England back in 1999. And then, been doing a lot of different media stuff and been doing the NFL Draft Bible now. This is our 23rd year of independent NFL draft analysis. All of our content's over at allaccessfootball.com. Last year, I was the assistant general manager to the Edmonton Elks. We went through 3 GMs and 3 head coaches in one season. So you talk about a unique learning experience and being in the room with a lot of different perspectives and experience and ways to evaluate players. And then before that, I did the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl for about 5 years, very similar to the Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl, where we were responsible for finding 112 draft eligible players, bringing them out to the Rose Bowl. Had very good success doing that. And a lot of other miscellaneous jobs in between, but happy to be covering the draft for Boston Sports Journal. You guys do a great job, and buckle up.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with recent Patriot news. So last time I did a podcast, it was before Stefon Diggs came for a visit. He came, met with everybody. It was sort of a typical veteran visit where, dinner, health check because of he's coming back from ACL. He departed without a contract. It was a good visit from both sides' perspectives. They're going to keep in touch and see how things sort of progress from here. I'm sure there are Patriots fans who are disappointed that they didn't sign Diggs. I understand that. I do think this is a unique situation. I mean, I'm sure what the Patriots, maybe they would like to sign Diggs right now, but knowing the way the Patriots operate, a guy who tore his ACL in October, who's probably really not going to be full go until at the earliest October this year, and a guy who's almost 32 years old, I'm sure the Patriots are like, we'll give you, $8 million, and then, you can earn up to that. And Diggs probably isn't interested in that. And probably Diggs, might look for other opportunities. Maybe somebody gets hurt in training camp and all of a sudden his market changes. I think this was I think the Patriots wanted to bring him in, Rick, because they don't really know him. He certainly has a reputation, a really good, productive player, always has been, even last year with the Texans in a half a season, great production. But, look, he's bounced around, and there's a reason why players bounce around. And, I will say Diggs wouldn't have gotten in the door unless, Nick Caserio, who's close with a lot of people with the Patriots, and also Ben McDaniels, who's Josh's brother, is the wide receivers coach for the Texans. If it's easy for those guys to pick up the phone, the Patriots, like Josh McDaniels, to call both those guys, hey, what do you think? And from what I've heard talking to people in Houston, Diggs was great last year in the rooms, with their young receivers. He would stay on the field after practice working with them. He even worked with some of their defensive backs like Stingley, he would give them tips on like, this is what I'm trying to do to you, all this stuff. So, really good reports, not quite the diva that we've seen in Minnesota and Buffalo at times. Maybe he got humbled a little bit by having to bounce around, but I think that some people checked off. The Patriots wanted to bring him in, talk to him themselves, check out the knee, see where it was and all that stuff. And, now we'll see what happens. Rick, what's your viewpoint on sort of the Patriots being interested in Diggs?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do your due diligence, right? And just see what's out there, what the asking price is, weigh your alternatives. A couple of red flags just come out listening to you talk. I mean, he's on the wrong side of 30, which is 1. He's coming off a significant injury, which is 2. And, you're on the backside of 30 coming off that type of injury. What are your expectations? Do you see Stefon Diggs being here beyond this year? Otherwise, like, why are we trying to put a Band-Aid on a open gash wound? Like, we're not Stefon Diggs away from being a competitive football team. And also, like, I'm a little bit worried about stunting the growth of Drake May, because that's great to hear that he was a positive influence in Houston. And, I go back to Mike Locksley when I go and visit Maryland. I know Stefon Diggs had a lot of beef with the coaching staff there about some of the things that got out of the building when he was coming out for the draft. He didn't go back to Maryland since he left until this past summer. And he went back and hosted a youth camp. So maybe he's making amends. Maybe he's a changed man. But I will tell you this. One thing that caught my attention during last offseason, I would say right around August coming into the year, I watched a really long, in-depth interview with Josh Allen, trying to get to know him a little bit more. And he said some interesting things. And I think he was speaking directly about Stefon Diggs. And the mantra last year was everybody eats. And in other words, it was addition by subtraction when Stefon Diggs left the Bills. And while he brings a resume and he brings accomplishments, there wasn't that pressure of forcing the ball to him, or it wasn't that pressure of seeing him come off the field frustrated because he didn't get a target. And so what happens now, I wonder, in mid-October, all of a sudden you've got this all-pro, Pro Bowl kind of ego injected into the offense. And guess what? He's going to expect the ball. And, now Drake May, does he have to go out of his way to feed this guy? And really, I mean, at 32 years old, like, does he really have a future beyond this year? I don't think so. So why not go and try to find a younger talent through the draft, or maybe a veteran bargain bin kind of signing? That would be my approach, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, what you bring up about feeding Diggs. I mean, now he's going into an offense, and we'll just assume that Josh McDaniels is. Well, I know it's the bones of his former offense. It might be a little bit different from some of the stuff he's learned in the offseason, but Diggs would be going into an offense, and you could use this if you were talking about Devontae Adams, any sort of wide receiver, high volume wide receiver, somebody that wants to touch the ball. They're now going into an offense where it's literally the open guy is the main receiver, and they distribute the ball to everybody as long as you can run your routes and be where you're supposed to be. Like, everyone's going to touch the ball, and they're going to spread it around, and they don't just, this is not a volume type offense. And I will say, like, look, I like Diggs the player. Before the injury, he looked really good. I love his route running. I think he would be, we'll see, what level he comes back at. But I think if fans are thinking this would be some sort of solution, or we got a number one receiver. This isn't that. Like, the Patriots, like, this is Diggs, if he coming back from an ACL, when you're not yourself, if you ever get there till a year after you return. I mean, we're talking about he's a 2/3, and they got Mac Hollins, who is a 3/4, and so it doesn't really solve anything. It helps, but let's not act like if they signed him tomorrow that all of a sudden, like, woo, great Patriots offseason all the way around, A+ across the board. No, that's not it. So we'll see what happens with Diggs down the line. One other guy that was mentioned a lot for the Patriots, not by me, but other people, fans mostly looking for solving things on the Patriots offensive line. Teven Jenkins from the Bears ended up signing with the Browns. I am not going to shed a tear over Teven Jenkins. I did not want the Patriots to be in the game of let's pick up somebody else's trash again, like Garrett Bradbury. I mean, whether they were in on or not on Cam Robinson and these guys, like, these guys who, are basically other teams' trash. I mean, the Bears, the Vikings and the Bears were two teams that looked at their offensive line and said, we're horrible and we're completely remaking it. And that includes Bradbury and Jenkins. And I'm sorry, I don't want those type of players. And so, I'm glad he's off the board. What do you think, if anything, Rick, about Jenkins? And also, let's talk about your overall impression of the Patriots offseason to this point.
Yeah, well, with Jenkins, I mean, that's another guy coming out who was a college tackle, winded up kicking inside when he got to the pros. I think the Patriots have enough of those bodies in the trenches on the offensive line. Maybe try to find a true guard, a backup. I don't know. Again, I've always been a big philosophy of draft and develop and use your cap space. Like, I know New England had a lot of money to spend, so you got to use it on somebody. But to me, I prefer to use it on the players that you draft in-house, that develop, and that you want to keep long-term. Like, when you have talent in the building, don't let them escape. And to your point, like, there's a reason why these guys are still hanging out, right? And if you wait it out long enough and nobody calls, well, guess what? The price plummets come August. And, a lot of these guys are veterans, like the tackle you mentioned, Cam
Robinson.
Cam Robinson, like, if he's got nowhere else to go come August, well, his price, his demand probably is going to drop 30 to 50%. So why spend now? See how the draft plays out. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to plug some holes in the offseason months to come. But, in terms of the Patriots offseason, I think they towed the line, a fine line, without, identifying needs, without really overpaying too much. And I like Howard Landry, you bring in, he's familiar with Mike Vrabel. In fact, he had his best season when Vrabel was down there, right? And so I just had a new mock draft that came out, and I had the Patriots taking Abdul Carter Jr. So wouldn't that be phenomenal to all of a sudden turn a weakness into a strength? You get two new pass rushers in Landry, maybe Abdul Carter. I like it. Carlton Davis, I mean, this is a great pick. And if he remains there penciled in as the starter, cool. If you draft Travis Hunter at number 4, you figure it out. And all of a sudden now the secondary becomes an area of strength. So they allowed themselves to have some flexibility. I mean, Davis is a veteran guy. He started, I think, full-time the last 2 seasons, but I think over 50 career starts. And then, Garrett Bradbury, not a big fan. Had trouble staying injury-free. Availability is your best ability. Why not just keep David Andrews? I don't think I understand the swap for that. Great athleticism coming out. One of these guys who just wowed at the combine, had a great 40, can bend, and has all this athleticism. It just didn't translate. There's some whispers there about questionable work ethic. We shall see how that pans out. And then, again, like, not splurging and overpaying, but guys like Morgan Moses, Mac Hollins, professionals inside the building who could set an example, who are not going to go out there and embarrass you. They're well liked within the locker room. So I think overall, I mean, Joshua Dobbs under the radar, like, gives them some draft day flexibility. If they still want to entertain Joe Milton, like, let's see how many quarterbacks come off the board in round 1. How desperate with the supply and demand do teams get? How do they view Joe Milton as opposed to Joe Milroe? I mean, I think it's a good question, a valid question. I was on the Giants show last week and said, hey, why not flip your compensatory pick that you just got in the 3rd round for Joe Milton? Makes a lot of sense to me. What's their other alternatives? They're not going to get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And they're, in a situation at quarterback, you want to go down the Russell Wilson road, the road to mediocrity, where the GM and head coach are fired and you're in the same spot next year looking for a quarterback. Why not trade for Joe Milton? Why not draft a guy on day 2 or day 3 and have those guys compete rather than going with Joe Flacco or Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. Like, I know how the end of those movies are going to play out, and it's not going to be fun. So Milton, I mean, only one game of work. I'm not going to get too excited about a Week 17 matchup, but I am excited about the traits. And if you can coach somebody like Anthony Richardson didn't work out in Indianapolis because he doesn't love the game. Everything you hear about Joe Milton, this guy is like first one in, last one out. You can't find Joe Milton. Guess what? He's in the film room. He's got his nose in the playbook. I mean, this guy is somebody I would want to work with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Of course, people who listen to this podcast know how I feel about the Patriots offseason so far. I mean, look, I love what they've done on defense. It's another defensive head coach. It's very similar to what Bill used to do. He used to get the he used to get the top shelf liquors for his defense, and then gave the offense scraps. And you look at where they are right now with Wes Scheitzer, a Jets backup on the offensive line. Bradbury, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan. I've watched some of his film. He's a tough, strong little guy, but he gets bullied a lot. That's not great in this division. Morgan Moses, I like, but where are the impact guys on offense where you're like, all right, we definitely solved an issue. I don't think they've solved. Maybe Moses at right tackle they've solved. I love Mac Hollins. You sort of do everything, dirty work guy as a wide receiver. I've always loved watching this film, but definitely not what I would have done, and it leaves a lot to be desired. And that will bring us into our draft discussion, which we will get into as soon as I tell you guys about PrizePicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. I love sitting down with the app. It's fast, easy to use while I'm watching the game, and then see if my picks pay off. It's a blast. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. The second half of the basketball season is here, and the race to the playoffs is heating up on PrizePicks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, Rick. Obviously, the Patriots have a lot of work to do, especially maybe almost exclusively on offense. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. All right, maybe a little shocked, but if they used all their picks on offense, or at least their premium picks on offense, considering what they've spent on defense. But whatever. Let's start this draft discussion, sort of a draft primer, on how you see the picks leading to the Patriots being 4 on the clock.
Well, it's hard not to hear the noise that is Will Campbell out of LSU. Obviously, he's been linked to New England. I think they like him as a tackle. I prefer him as a guard. Arm length is one issue. Struggling with speed, how much of that is an issue? He didn't really allow a sack this past year, I think, 1 sack. But when you take a look at the pressure that he's allowed, it's coming close. So how does that translate to the NFL? I worry about guys like Will Campbell and Armand Membo. For me, personally, I think both of them are guards. Membo just isn't a real tough guy. He's more of a finesse guy for me. And I could see both of those options in play for the Patriots at number 4. Tat McMillan, okay, you want to throw him into the equation. I'm not ecstatic about that idea. And the next pro day, scouting future Patriots, I have a pro day report coming up on Boston Sports Journal about some of the visits and some of the pro day performances of potential Patriots targets, and T-Mac is one of them, right? And I saw a lot of different kind of 40 times reported. I saw as low as 448, but I checked in with a couple people that were there on location, and I think most scouts had him in between the 452 and 455 range, which is fine. It's adequate. Okay. Not every receiver has to be a speed burner, especially when you're 6'5". Mike Evans ran a 4.53. I don't see Tat McMillan being a Mike Evans type. I saw Daniel Jeremiah put out a stat that I was not aware of, which was a first round wide receiver that has ran sub 4.55 has not been drafted since Mike Williams from the Detroit Lions back in the Matt Millen era. So that was surprising to see. But, listen, I don't think like Tat McMillan to me is too much of a boom or bust prospect. He's not a refined route runner. Yes, he makes the vertical plays and has a highlight reel filmed of acrobatic catches looking like Burt Lancaster on the Trap NZ over there. But, I don't want a guy that just flashes big plays. I want my wide receiver one to be a refined route runner and not an all or nothing type of play. So to me, as much as they need a receiver, as much as they need a big play weapon, like a guy like Trey Harris, who might be hanging out at number 38 out of Ole Miss, I would feel much more comfortable with him. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, more quick than fast. Again, one of these low to mid 4.5 range guys, but I'm okay with that. And, he was Jackson Dart's go-to target. You're getting him at a premium value because if he didn't have the injury this past year that limited him to 8 games, he would be a first-round lock, in my opinion. So I think you can get a guy like that on the bargain bin side of things. Now, if it were me, I understand they went all defense. We didn't talk about Milton Williams, who they did overpay for, and they have Harold Landry. The blood clot situation with Christian Barmore seems under control. But for me, I'd be all in on Abdul Carter Jr. because I project him to be available when the Patriots are up on the board. Maybe the Giants pull the trigger and go Carter. Then you have to go Travis Hunter. But to me, these are the two best players in the draft. I have Travis Hunter 1. I have Abdul Carter Jr. 2. I think Travis Hunter is the much more cleaner prospect because you don't have to worry about the right foot injury, which doesn't need anything at the moment. But they are talking about a screw insertion. And if you remember Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech, coming out with the Raiders a couple years back, similar injury. And so at some point, that screw in the foot might become a real thing. And that's about a 2-month recovery time. It's not an end-all be-all or a deal breaker or a career-threatening type of injury, but there could be something there. And so I think it really comes down more with the medical report with Abdul Carter Jr., whereas Travis Hunter, I can't recall Greg grading a cornerback this high, and that's what he is a cornerback. Natural instincts, incredible footwork, fluid hips. This guy had a handful of games, I think at least like 4 games where he scored a touchdown and had an interception in the same game. And I think that's the kind of dynamic he can bring to New England where, even if you had him in the slot and you want to keep Carlton Davis on the boundary the first year of Travis Hunter, you could do that and still experiment him on offense until you kind of figure out his full-time role. Like this guy just makes plays happen. So why not have a package for him? 20-25 plays a game on offense because arguably he might be your best receiver. And so, like, to me, Travis Hunter would be a dream come true. The Giants signed Paulson Adebo. They got Deontay Banks. They might feel good about their cornerbacks and bypass on Travis Hunter. I would do cartwheels to the podium if Travis Hunter was on the board.
All right. So hang on. Let's back up for a second. So who do you have going number 1 overall? Cam Ward?
Cam Ward, yes.
Okay. So number 2, is that the Browns?
The Browns, I believe, are going to be in on Shedeur Sanders, as are the Giants. So I think it'll be Shedeur Sanders 2. It could be the Browns. It could be the Giants.
Okay. Let's say the Browns go Shedeur 2, or maybe somebody trades up, what have you. Who do you have going 3?
Right now, I have Travis Hunter going 3 because I just see him as the best player in the draft.
Okay.
The Giants.com guys disagreed with me and said they would go Carter over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would seem to make a little bit more sense. So, okay. So that's where we are. And of course, we have the Patriots, some of the things you laid out. Travis Hunter, let me ask you this. And I haven't studied him extensively yet, but the way I see him, and I haven't watched him at all at cornerback, I'm more curious about him as a wide receiver. I know he's a little bit raw, which comes from playing full time, 2 positions in college. I think he could be spectacular at wide receiver from what I've seen. I think and I think he has the ability to catch the ball in the short area, take it to the house. He has elite ball skills down the sideline. I'll be curious about his speed. I've liked some of his shake off the line. There's a long ways to go in terms of all that stuff and the route running. But I heard this comp for Travis Hunter the other day. I'm pretty sure it was Todd McShay. It's the first time I had heard this, and I totally agree with it. He comped him to Garrett Wilson, which, I looked at their size and stuff like that. Seems extremely close. Garrett Wilson, more experienced, more polished coming out of school, was, I think, the 10th or 11th overall pick. But Garrett Wilson is also, let's face it, a little bit of a head case where it looks like Travis Hunter is completely clean off the field in terms of work ethic. I mean, look what he did in college in terms of playing both ways. Like, you don't do that without, having a whole lot of discipline. And so let me ask you this. What do you think about if the Patriots drafted Travis Hunter as a wide receiver first, and then, maybe some packages in the red zone, defensive back, what have you, as they figure things out going along? At some point, Christian Gonzalez is going to need a contract extension. You just signed Carlton Davis. Maybe you say, you know what? We let Gonzo go. We think Hunter's better. We're putting Hunter over at DB while we spend a couple of years trying to fill out that room. What do you think about if the Patriots drafted Hunter as a wide receiver at 4? What would you think about that?
I wouldn't be mad about it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you want to get the best possible player. And if that's Travis Hunter and you got to figure out how to use him, I'm okay with that. But you do have to have a long-term vision in terms of where he's going to settle in. Personally, I value cornerbacks more than I value wide receivers. I can find a gazillion wide receivers in the draft. I'm not.
Patriots can't.
Right. Well, that's a good one there. Most teams could find a wide receiver in the draft, but I understand the logic. If Travis Hunter maxes out his potential at wide receiver, can he be Garrett Wilson? Sure. I don't think he's anywhere near the kind of route runner as a Garrett Wilson. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable starting Travis Hunter based on seeing the routes that I've seen. I don't think he's even a wide receiver 2 at this point, but that's just me. Like, Andrew Berry at the Combine said they prefer Hunter at wide receiver. I don't know if he's, playing mental games there, but he's the first and only person I heard, I think, say that they prefer him at wide receiver. Most of the teams I talk to think he's a cornerback first, but that's just how incredible of a talent the guy. I mean, he averaged 120 reps per game over the last 2 years, had that lacerated kidney injury 2 years ago, came back from that as if nothing happened. The only drama has been that how his girlfriend reacts at the Heisman Trophy. I mean, other than that, great character guy, great talent. I'm all in on Travis Hunter.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a quick break to tell you about Game Time. Then we're going to come back, and I want to play a little game, Rick, where let's play a game where we go from the Patriots take a tackle at 4 or 4-ish. And then they trade back. If they take a tackle at 4, trading back up into the first round, who could be there at wide receiver for them to pick, and then we'll flip-flop it. If they take Travis Hunter as a wide receiver at 4, who could they trade up and get offensive tackle at the bottom of the first round? Game Time picks. Game Time, love the app. It's where I go for tickets. I was just looking at the NCAAs in Providence. I was looking at the Hockey East Championship, which is tonight. Friday night. Great deals on there. Game Time picks curation makes it easier to save money, save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You have seat views. Love it. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's a must for me. They also have the lowest price guarantee. Our Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Like I said, was just checking out Hockey East on there. Great event. Cheaper if you want to bring the family. You got a little puck player in your household like I do. Great place. You can get in for $20. That would be Maine versus UConn. UConn's come out of nowhere to suddenly be in the Hockey East Championship after being a doormat for a long time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so let's start with, and I agree with you on Will Campbell. Like, it's not just with me, very talented guy. I think he's going to play in the league for 15 years, and I do think it'll be a guard. It's not just the arm length with him. It's also the wingspan, because he has really, really narrow shoulders, and his measurables have never worked in the NFL. I mean, could he do it? Yeah. But I'm not crazy about that. But let's just say the Patriots love Will Campbell. They think he can play tackle. They plug and play him there because that's the most glaring need next to or alongside wide receiver on this depth chart right now. If the Patriots take Will Campbell at 4, and say they wanted to target a wide receiver in the bottom of the first round to trade back up, who would sort of be on your short list, Rick?
Yeah, and I have Will Campbell's wingspan. It's almost like a misprint, 77 inches, how much smaller it is than the rest of them. To me, like, I'm starting to believe, Greg, that Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State just might be the best wide receiver in this year's draft. At least he has the highest floor. I know what I'm getting with Emeka Egbuka. He's a physical wide receiver who can run the route tree. And I think he gets dinged a little bit just because Ohio State's been like this wide receiver factory. You mentioned Garrett Wilson and then Olave and Fitzgerald or Marvin Harrison Jr. and all these guys that have come out of Ohio State, Jackson Smith. I mean, he might not have as much upside as these guys, but I think this is like a plug and play wide receiver 2 on the Patriots. Maybe he's a wide receiver 1, but he's a clean prospect. And I don't know, like, it's going to be interesting also because, like, for me, if you're the Patriots, you got to target a boundary guy. Enough with these slot options, okay? We don't need any of these undersized slot speed demons like, Isaiah Bond out of Texas, right? He might be hanging out in the first round. Luther Burden is another guy that is a slot receiver at the next level that has speed. Even Matthew Golden, like, he played inside outside for Texas, but he's only 5'11". And does that speed, 4.29? You see these guys come off the board sometimes earlier than anticipated. So, and we mentioned Trey Harris. That's the other boundary guy at 6'2", 3/8 inches, 205. There's a wide receiver with size. Emeka Egbuka is 6'1", 202. I don't have to worry about size, physicality, durability. Like, we need somebody that has that skill set or those kind of traits. Now, there is a dark horse candidate, and I don't really see him going in the first round, but there's an outside shot. Utah State, Jalen Royals. Like, this guy was getting a first round buzz before his injury this year. I went back and watched this film the other day. Like, this guy is a twitched up route runner, creates a lot of separation coming in and out of those breaks. And so Jalen Royals is like a dark horse first round candidate, but like, they've got to target a boundary wideout. None of these slot guys, none of these speed, all or nothing deep threats. Like, let's get a refined route runner who's physical, can match up against press man coverage and go make the play over the middle. That's what they need.
Who's the Iowa State guy that I hear a lot of?
Oh, you got the Jaden Higgins and
Yes.
Jalen Noel. But two different.
Jaden Higgins.
Yeah. So Higgins, I mean, like, he had a bunch of production. He's 6'4", 214, and ran a 4.47 with a 39-inch vertical. So again, like, there's a receiver that came out a couple years ago who's toiling around in the UFL. I try to get him up to Canada, but he reminds me of, again, just like needs work on the route running, but like jump balls, 50-50 balls, contested catches in traffic, like Jalen Noel with a 6'4" frame and a 40-inch vertical. Like you can just throw alley oops to this guy all day long. Now, I think he's the top 100 guy, maybe somewhere middle of second round is where I'm anticipating he comes off the board. And yeah, I mean, those Iowa State guys, not really known for offensive wide receivers in the past, but they got a pair of them this year. Noel is a more of a slot guy, speeder, 5'10", 194, ran a 4.39.
Yeah. Okay. So let's flip it now. Say the Patriots just can't help themselves. Travis Hunter is there on the board for them. They take him as a wide receiver for now to plug the hole. And they'll with, Josh McDaniels and I think Todd Downing is the receivers coach, but Josh McDaniels, basically they say we're pairing up Drake May and Travis Hunter together for their career, and Josh McDaniels is going to teach Travis Hunter every day how to be receiver. And now they need their offensive tackle, and they will be aggressive trading up to grab somebody. What do you think of the tackles that could be available, towards the bottom of the first round if they trade back up?
Yeah, so like Josh Simmons out of Ohio State was trending towards being the potential first tackle off the board, and then he had that injury. Now, from what I heard is he'll be ready for training camp. Everything checked out well in Indianapolis, and the x-rays look good. And if that's the case, and you talk about, Will Campbell and Armand Membo, and I mean, I have Kelvin Banks as my number one rated tackle. I would anticipate those are the three tackles off the board, in any which order you want. So now you're looking at the back half or the late part of the first round where a guy like Simmons might still be on the board. Now, I'm a big fan of Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, right? At 6'6", 331, 33 and 1/8 inch arms, 81-inch wingspan. I think he has shown a 5.01 40 with a 1.75 10 yards. So like you're talking about a gargantuan man who can move, and there's not really as many questions with the length. And I mean, I'll give you one other guy, and we've talked about him, but I don't know where he's going to go in the draft. Maybe I'm higher on him than others, but like Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State. Yeah, this guy has all the traits in the world. Really good. I mean, he was a bender, a waist bender, and a knee bender at 6'6", 336, 34-inch arms, 83-inch wingspan, like big paws, 10.5-inch hands. So like, I love me some Anthony Belton. Like if you told me Anthony Belton was going to be the best offensive tackle in this year's draft when we're doing this show 10 years from now, I wouldn't be shocked. So, those would be some of the candidates. And again, I'll give you a dark horse. Like Gray Zabel, I think, is an interior guy. He really had a great workout in Mobile. But Charles Grant from William and Mary, who initially had a Senior Bowl invite and had he had to withdraw to a minor injury, but 6'5", 311, almost 35-inch arms. And this guy is a gritty guy. Like he's a tenacious, play through the whistle, kind of nasty dude, kind of attitude. And so, like, again, like I think he's a top 50 guy. Could Charles Grant out of William and Mary sneak into the first round? I don't know, but he's got a really good looking skill set and a frame.
Yeah. I agree with you on Belton. I thought he had a tremendous Senior Bowl, and to me, it showed me, whatever he was doing in the interim between the end of the college season and the bowl sort of circuit, where a lot of these guys go and get private instruction and stuff like that. It shows me that this is a coachable dude, because when I watched his film during the season, I wasn't overly impressed, but I was impressed at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was the best tackle there. You mentioned Banks, and I don't understand why he doesn't get more love. I agree with you. I think he's really good. I think his like when I first looked at Campbell and Banks, I was like, all right, Campbell has a really high floor, but I don't know how high his ceiling is. I think that Banks is a little bit more, he's a little bit more boom or bust, but I think he has a much higher ceiling. Can you tell me a little bit more about Banks, why he's not mentioned more, and why everybody seems to say like Will Campbell's definitely the best tackle in the draft? And also your thoughts on Connerly, who I was not overly impressed with at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah. I'll take Banks first, who I love. And, this guy has not missed a start at left tackle now, going back to his sophomore year of high school. So I like that kind of durability. And that means something because I believe he is a Texas native and they play some big time high school football down there. But he was measured at 6'3.5" in the spring. And he came in at the combine. I thought it was a pleasant surprise at 6'5 1/8. 315, 33.5-inch arms, 84.5-inch wingspan. I guess when you stack them up side by side, Greg, like Will Campbell does have better technique, does have better footwork. Like Campbell's kick slide allows him to navigate more ground laterally, whereas Banks' footwork is more pity pat. It's more choppy, smaller steps. So I think that's something that's correctable, but it's been, he's been getting by thus far on it pretty good. And he also has a wrestling background, which I like a lot. And we talk about the grappling and the hand technique and the hand placement. So while his feet aren't as good as Campbell's, he does have good hands. 4-year starter at Texas, I believe, or 3-year starter at Texas and 4-year starter at high school. So like, I think he has pedigree. In fact, I don't think he's as much of a risk as people, I guess, are making him out to be. I'm not sure why everybody is like, Campbell did have a lot of hype, like going back to last year. So I feel like the Campbell hype train is like 2 years in the making. So maybe it's just like he's been talked about a lot. And it's like the NFL, especially the mainstream media, when it comes to draft, like if you repeat it enough, sometimes people take it as the truth. And so, like, I don't know. I don't think there's a drop off for me. I think it's very close. I have Banks 1 and Campbell 2. But when you talk about the upside, it's Belton. When you talk about the high floor, it's Ursaray. And then you have Connerly, at 6'4", 6'5". His length is not a concern. 33.5 inches, 82-inch wingspan. Again, my eyes keep going to that 77-inch wingspan on Campbell. Like, did somebody in the Indianapolis mess up? I mean, that is really scary. But, in terms of Connerly, like, I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he comes with the same excitement as some of the other guys we're talking about. Like these other guys, you mentioned Campbell's going to hang out in the league for a decade. I feel strongly about that with Campbell and Banks and even Membo, right? Ursery, Belton, like Connerly. I don't know. Like he seems like a guy that could be an adequate starter. I just don't know if he's a guy, like I don't see him having a lot of Pro Bowls in his career. He's got a lot of everything he does very well. Like the footwork is good. The strength is good. I don't know if I see anything elite. Okay. And I think that's where Connerly, some of the luster, is kind of dimmed for me a little bit, but I still have him. Like right now, he's my 7th ranked tackle. I see him as a top 50, early 2nd round pick. And I don't think like, you don't have to be disappointed if the Patriots take him. He just isn't as an exciting prospect with as much upside or potential to dominate. I don't see him as a dominating force.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that sounds good. Thanks for the info, Rick. Of course, people can read Rick's coverage. He'll be starting his positional stuff, I think, relatively soon. But come over and subscribe because you got Rick on the draft. You got me and Giardi. I'll be at the league meetings, of course, giving you comprehensive Patriots coverage. Where else can the good people find you? I see you doing a lot with Baldy on the interwebs.
Yes, we have the NFL Draftcast show streams live every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We're live on the Twitter X and YouTube platforms at NFL Draft Bible. You can always find out more information on the website, allaccessfootball.com. And yeah, you said it, Greg, like we're going to be having all the scouting reports flowing over at bostonsportsjournal.com. So keep a lookout for that. I also have the scouting trail, pro day, following the breadcrumbs, the Patriots, following them around. Elliott Wolf was out there on the West Coast swing, hanging out at UCLA and Oregon pro days this past week. We'll talk about some of those guys that they might be targeting, and also a slew of pro days next week, including Boston College and UConn. So we'll have that all covered on the website. And appreciate all the love and support. Enjoy reading everyone's comments. Thank you for getting interactive with it and listening here on the show today.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Make sure you check out PrizePicks and Gametime, and we will see you next week.
After making waves for his decision not to participate in testing at the NFL Combine, Arizona wide receiver Teteroa McMillan returned to headlines after clocking in a 4.48 40-yard dash at his school's pro day. Now, this sparked conversation as to whether or not Tet McMillan deserved to be in the conversation for the Patriots' number 4 overall pick. McMillan gets his defender leaning off the line of scrimmage with a quick jab step outside, but the defender stays tight to his hip and contests the slant throw. McMillan snatches the ball out of the air, spins out of a tackle, then lowers his shoulder to drop another defender and throws a stiff arm on his way out of bounds. One of the things that makes McMillan so dangerous after the catch, on top of being physically imposing and being able to somehow juke defenders at his size, is the ability to also find and exploit space. That was on full display on this long 3rd and 10 touchdown against New Mexico, with Arizona down 7 points just before halftime. McMillan initially lines up in the slot, where he spent about 30% of his time in Arizona, and hits his landmark downfield right between the hashes. But he sees that the safety buzzing down is actually cutting off his route, so McMillan alertly drifts laterally into space, gives his quarterback a window to throw the pass, then accelerates past New Mexico's coverage, which, to be fair, isn't the most athletic group he's going to face, but does show McMillan's ability to find and exploit weaknesses in zone coverage and then build up speed to turn them into touchdowns. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to become a member of Patriots Press Pass on YouTube to get full access to videos like this and much more really fun content. I cannot wait for you to see it.